Am I sweaty because I just walked across campus with a bunch of camera equipment? Or is it because this week's crackdown is just that intense? You be the judge. We've got big news about American troops being pulled out of Libya. Plus, Michael Avenatti is accused of stealing from a paraplegic. Whew. Also, college admissions scandal updates and the 4th annual Temple Vigil. Plus, a whole bunch more news. From WHIP, I'm Tony Pearson, and this is your WHIP Weekly News Crackdown. We're going to start with some nitty-gritty government and politics. So if that's not your cup of tea, check the description to skip to other topics. We've got timestamps. After abruptly resigning, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen spoke out for the first time on Monday, April 8th. Nielsen told reporters there is a, quote, humanitarian crisis at the southern border and emphasized the need to address it. Trump announced via Twitter that Customs and Border Protection Commissioner Kevin McAleenan will serve as acting DHS secretary. It's unclear whether Nielsen is leaving voluntarily or whether she has been pressured to resign. Her departure is part of a massive DHS leadership overhaul engineered and directed by top Trump advisor Stephen Miller, according to a senior U.S. official talking to CBS. Claire Grady, the acting deputy secretary at the DHS, also offered President Trump her resignation on Tuesday, April 9th. Trump withdrew his nominee to lead Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and the White House announced that Secret Service Director Randolph Tex Alles could be departing the agency. Trump is likely looking to fill the agency with those who support his immigration efforts to build more barriers at the border and curtail migrant asylum. On Friday, NBC News reported that the president's top national security advisors were considering various options for increasing the military presence at the border. On the topic of the military, the United States has temporarily withdrawn troops from Libya after fighting by the Libyan National Army, one of the entities currently vying for control over Libya, advanced toward the capital of Tripoli. The Associated Press reported that this created a security risk to troops on the ground. A small band of U.S. troops have been stationed in Libya in recent years to help local forces fight off al-Qaeda and to protect American diplomatic interests. It is unclear at this time how many troops will stay or leave, but the United States is not the only country trying to evacuate. India also evacuated its peacekeepers as conditions in the capital worsened. Libya has faced internal conflict since 2011, when an uprising overthrew longtime dictator Muammar Gaddafi. Speaking of transitioning power, Israeli exit polls last Sunday showed that the race between Benjamin Netanyahu and Benny Gantz was real close. Although both candidates claimed victory, it was up to Israeli President Reuven Rivlin to decide who would have a better chance of creating a parliamentary majority. By Thursday, however, Gantz conceded, leaving Netanyahu as Israel's prime minister for a historic 5th term. This election was quite polarizing. We recommend you check the sources in the description for the full story. In somewhat related news, President Trump declared a branch of the Iranian military to be a foreign terrorist organization on Monday. This marks the first time the United States has ever designated a section of a foreign country's government as an official terrorist threat. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps carries out operations throughout the Middle East, serves as a watchdog over Iranian businesses, and trains Arab Shiite militias. The terrorist designation will impose economic and travel sanctions on the Revolutionary Guards starting on April 15th. Some of Trump's top national security advisors have criticized this decision because it could incite Iran to retaliate against American troops. Analysts believe that Trump made this announcement to bolster support for Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu during the election. Netanyahu has previously stated that Iran is the greatest threat to Israel. After Trump made the terrorist designation, Netanyahu immediately took credit for the idea and thanked him on Twitter. While we're talking about social media, British lawmakers announced Sunday their plans for a sweeping regulation that would target big technology companies like Facebook and Google that fail to police users' illegal or harmful use of their platforms. The plan would target a variety of content, including child exploitation, verifiably false news, terrorist activity, and extreme violence. The plan warns that top executives at these companies could be held directly liable for failure to police their platforms. Wait a minute, that's right. Brexit was supposed to happen like 2 weeks ago. European Union leaders and British Prime Minister Theresa May have agreed to delay Brexit again. Cool. Britain now has until October 31st, with a review to be held in June for Mrs. May's Brexit deal. Sounds like Halloween is going to be extra spooky this year. While we're in England, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange was expelled from the Ecuadorian embassy in London on Thursday and arrested on a U.S. hacking charge. This arrest marks the end of a 7-year period in which Assange stayed beyond the reach of the law while dumping classified and politically volatile materials online. U.S. prosecutors confirmed for the first time that they secretly charged Assange last year for a conspiracy to illegally obtain secret U.S. military and diplomatic documents. He is also accused of helping Chelsea Manning to try and crack a government password. Assange first took refuge in the embassy in 2012 to avoid a sexual assault case in Sweden, which has since been dropped. The BBC reported that he was found guilty of failing to surrender to the court at Westminster Magistrates Court following his arrest. The UK will now decide whether to extradite Assange to the US, where he could face up to 5 years in prison. Interestingly, the president has stated at a press conference that he has, quote, no opinion on Julian Assange, despite referencing the platform well over 100 times during his campaign speeches. Speaking of the last election, a joint intelligence bulletin issued by the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI was the first official report to confirm that Russian hacking activities during the 2016 election targeted all 50 states. We knew it was bad, now we know it was worse. Real talk, I think Russia is getting too comfortable with us. We've got an update on another player from the last election too. American Media Inc. announced that it is looking to sell the National Enquirer after a review found that it is losing money. If you recall from previous crackdowns, the National Enquirer found itself in hot water after conspiring with the Trump campaign to cover up negative stories, including the president's alleged affair with a Playboy model. Among potential buyers is Ron Burkle, a billionaire investor with ties to Bill Clinton. Neat. But I can think of at least 60 companies that are having a much better time. At least 60 companies report that their 2018 federal tax rates amount to approximately zero, twice as many as last year. Some even got money back. This is likely due to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act signed by Trump in 2017, which cut the corporate tax rate by over a third, among other cuts. Well-known names like Amazon, Netflix, and Deere & Co. are among the companies that effectively reported owing nothing on their profits. According to a report by the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, instead of paying $16.4 billion in taxes on that 21% rate, these companies enjoyed a net rebate of $4.3 billion. I am speechless. But you know who else is probably speechless? Michael Avenatti. Michael Avenatti, a celebrity lawyer, was indicted on 36 counts of embezzlement and fraud by a California federal grand jury on Thursday. If found guilty of all charges, he could be sentenced to a maximum of 335 years in prison. Prosecutors allege that Avenatti stole millions of dollars from his clients, including one man who is paraplegic. Avenatti allegedly drained money from the man's trust account and used it to finance a coffee business. Classy. These charges do not include a New York extortion case alleging that Avenatti demanded millions to stay quiet about Nike's plans to pay high school players. Avenatti responded to allegations in a post on Twitter saying, quote, I intend to full fight all charges and plead not guilty. While we're talking disappointing celebrities, we've got a few updates on that college admissions scandal. Actress Felicity Huffman was one of 16 parents indicted on charges of conspiracy and bribery in college admissions. Huffman agreed to plead guilty on Monday and released a statement of contrition to USA Today. Meanwhile, Lori Loughlin and her husband were hit with a money laundering charge in the scandal, which carries a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison. Check the description for more info on this spicy college story. Okay, let's rein it in for some less scandalous college news. Temple kicked off its partnership with community residents on April 5th to create a special services district near main campus. The North Central Special Services District will aim to improve the quality of life in the community by reducing problems like trash and student behavioral issues. The Special Services District is led by a board of 9 members, of which 5 are local residents and 4 are university employees. The announcement sparked protests among community members. In particular, community members jumped to criticize the university's proposal for an on-campus stadium, despite the plans being at a standstill for months. President Englert said that these 2 plans would officially remain unrelated. Finally, for our last story this week, Temple partnered with the CTC Wellness Foundation to hold the 4th annual TU Memorial Vigil on April 9th. The event was held during the evening at the Bell Tower and honored the lives of Temple community members who passed away within the past year. Mary Ciametti, the founder and president of Don't Stall, Just Call and the CTC Wellness Foundation, has organized the vigil for the past 4 years. She began the event as a way to honor her son, who passed away in the 2014-2015 academic year due to alcohol poisoning. Whew, 14 stories, and it feels like we barely scratched the surface this week. If we only had more time. Join us next week for more of the news you care about, and please like, subscribe, and share if you feel you learned something. From WHIP News, I'm Tony Pearson, and this has been your WHIP Weekly News Crackdown.